Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another of the lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, but is known as the Daily Office Lectionary. And I thought for today, let's jump into the reading from Proverbs because, man, we're just learning so much good information on how to live, how to both interact with each other, as well as how to interact with the good God who loves us so much that he sent his son to die on the cross for us. So Proverbs, this wisdom saying, we're on chapter 23, beginning at verse 20. We're going to do what's assigned for morning prayer is verses 20 and 21, 29 through 35. You're welcome to read the middle part at your leisure. Be not among wine-bibbers and among riotous eaters of flesh. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall close a man with rags. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, thou shalt say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. So, man, the writer of Proverbs has got this right down, right? So, is drinking against the Bible? Well, of course it's not. Jesus used the wine of the Last Supper, right, which would have been the Passover meal, and he changes the wine into his precious blood. St. Paul talks about if you've got a little stomach ailment, take a little wine. It'll help your stomach. And so if you do not have a problem with alcohol, right, if you are not an alcoholic or perhaps a potential alcoholic, certainly alcohol is not for those who are of age, and we do know that children, as their brains are developing, alcohol is not good for them. But if you're of age and you can have a social drink here and there, well, then thanks be to God. But when he talks about, be not among wine-bibbers, he's talking about people who are just drinking. People, nowadays, because we have hard liquor as well. But he goes on to describe all of these sort of things, right? The drunkard and the glutton. And by the way, drinking too much falls under the sin of gluttony, right? It's eating and drinking, overt abundance of eating and drinking, or persnicketedness in eating or drinking. All both fall underneath gluttony. And it says, look, it's going to come to poverty. You're going to do this, drowsiness, you're going to be clothed you in rags, because if you, in fact, have an addiction, if you work your way into an addiction to alcohol, it will ruin your life and the lives of those around you. So don't tarry long at it. Don't spend your time spending a lot of time with it. And I love how he says, that last bite biteth like a serpent, and then it'll start doing things like running after, all sorts of bad choices you will make because of your imbibing of alcohol. You behold strange women, or of course women behold strange men, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. And then of course you're going to lie down and you're going to say, it feels like somebody beat me up, right? And oh my gosh, I feel terrible. And then he says, but you'll seek it yet again, right? And how many people, when they're hungover, will say, oh my God, I'll never do that again, only to get right back at it a few days later, if not that next and same day. So please be aware that as the writer of Proverbs warns us, alcohol can be a problem and has destroyed lots of families, has destroyed lots of. The good news, that we just celebrated on the church calendar, Sam Shoemaker, Bill Wilson, and Dr. Bob Smith. Who are those three? Well, Father Sam Shoemaker was an Episcopal priest at the time in New York, and was the parish priest for Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob are given the credit as the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Sam Shoemaker helped Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob write the 12 steps based on something called the Oxford Group, which was an organization with affiliation ties to the Episcopal Church. So we thank God for all three of them. So if you find yourself having a problem with alcohol, there is hope and there is help. And it's been no secret that I have been in recovery for quite a few 24 hours, right? One day at a time. And I am grateful to share with those who might be discerning whether or not they need to stop drinking. I'd be more than happy to spend some time discussing that with them and helping them to discern whether or not that's where they're called. writer of Proverbs tells you it could be a problem. If it's a problem, by God's grace, right, one day at a time, you can stay sober. So today is Thursday, and today's a feast day. Today is the feast of the presentation. Jesus is presented on the temple on the 40th day of his life. He's also the feast of the purification of Mary. Right? After her issue of blood, having given birth, she's now considered pure and can re-enter into public worship. When you have an issue of blood after birth, the blood is considered unclean. So she's now, and of course, 40 days she's had to recover. No expectation that she'd be up and around and running back and forth to public worship, right? She needs to recover from giving birth as well. And it is also known as Candlemas. So we have 10:30 Holy Communion and 4 o'clock evening prayer. And I do hope, God willing, to see you in church.